Hello, dear listener. I have something truly special to share. It's an exclusive invitation to join me in Mexico for an intimate and luxurious 3-day retreat along the beautiful Pacific coast of Zihuatanejo, taking place the weekend of the spring equinox, March 18th through the 20th. There's also an optional day to stay through the 21st for some special ceremonies that are happening in the area for the equinox. But the retreat itself is the 18th through the 20th, really an opportunity not to be missed. And I'm offering one lucky listener a discounted ticket on this weekend that I've just been loving into being actually for several years now as COVID and, everything. But when we conceived of building this place, our home down here, it's really what we envisioned, bringing people down here for retreats, for trainings, because we felt and we knew that this space was special. And as people keep coming down and we keep getting the feedback, how magical it is, we want to share it in a really intentional way. Be working with the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, water, the metaphors of the season. We'll set sight on a new vision for our mothering journey and creating a deeper connection to self and Mother Nature. So to win a discounted ticket, rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts. Screenshot it and DM it to me on Instagram at Dr. Gertrude Lyons. And remember, the most important thing to mother is yourself. Give yourself permission to take a retreat this year. And besides, who said mothers can't go on a spring break? I'll see you there.
This is a Soulfire production. Welcome to Mother. No, it's Mother. Welcome to Mother, the show where we can explore our inner mothers to actualize our greatest selves. Through interviews with incredible guests, live coaching sessions, and my own experiences, we're going to dive deep into embracing feminine values and reparenting ourselves. So be prepared to show up, hold space, and be mothered in a way you never have before, but have always needed. It's time we rewrite the Mother Code. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Mother, Rewriting the Mother Code podcast, season 3. Well, I had the honor and privilege. Juices are still flowing. I still feel electric from just interviewing Florence and Romano. Sometimes, I feel like I connect with all my guests. Generally, they're, we're fairly like-minded, or even if not, we connect in beautiful ways. But Florence is one of those guests where it's like, oh my gosh, you too? And I think at some point I say, I really believe we're sisters from another mother, at least in what we care about and what we're trying to do in the arena of raising awareness in the mothering space and really wanting to empower women in that area. So Florence, a former nanny of 15 years, an author and an active childcare advocate. She's a proud member of the board of directors of the Children's Research Fund, an incredible organization that supports the pediatric research at Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago. She's also a founding member of Sesame Street's Leadership Council, and she looks after honorary kids in her life daily. She truly believes that parents will experience beautiful breakthroughs in their homes if they simply ask for help. Her goal is to encourage and empower you to be the best you can be by letting love in. And we also talk about the current book that she's writing. It's all around consciously creating your village, right? So many of the connections and overlap with the Mother Code message, nuancing it and bringing more insight and a whole new perspective and way to consider and underline the amazing possibilities when we all start acknowledging that all women mother and what can happen in that space. So without further ado, here we go. I am super excited. Welcome, Florence and Romano to my show today. Welcome, Florence. So happy to have you.
I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you.
I know we're going to have a great conversation. You span a number of arenas in your skill set. One, you have a digital content agency currently called Yakety Yak, correct? I got that right?
Correct.
Yes. Wonderful. So your creativity and all that flourishes there, but you're also in this whole arena of, you've been a professional nanny, but now you're just this huge advocate for spreading child care wisdom across the USA. And you have a podcast, 15 years that you worked as a nanny, but now your mission to spread child care wisdom across the USA. So you have, in addition to Windy City Nanny, you're also on the board of directors of Sesame Street's Leadership Council, Lurie's Children's Research Fund, and I know more. And you have this beautiful podcast called Finger Painting the Future. So just want to kind of throw that out there so our audience has some idea of the magic that you're making. But I would love now to hear from you. Tell us about you. Who are you? How did you come to be doing the many things that you're doing? And we'll go from there.
Well, thank you for a lovely introduction. It's funny, you hear someone say like the different things you've done or are doing, and you're like, gosh, I feel kind of tired after you hear that list of things.
I do a lot.
Right?
Wow. Yes.
I guess I'm fitting a lot in there, but it's really been a natural evolution, I would say, in my life, the things that I've done. You make plans and, in your life and then you end up somewhere else, and it's usually somewhere better than you ever expected. And sometimes the road to it is not the road you expected or even the easiest road, but you realize in hindsight why you went through what you did to get there, which I think is a very cool thing to evaluate in your life from time to time. But the reason I've gone into childcare advocacy was because of my career as a nanny. And what led me to this side of it now, after actively working with children and families for 15 years, was I wrote a children's book called Nanny and Me to help children understand the transition or being cared for by their parents, to then being cared for by a nanny or a caretaker. And I was compelled to write it because the statistic, and it continues to rise, is over 65% of families in America today have a nanny or a caretaker. And I just thought to myself, gosh, this isn't a trend. This is a part of our life now. This is part of our culture, and it's not going anywhere. And we're doing our children a disservice and our families a disservice if we're not talking about who's helping us raise our children. And we hear that line all the time of, it takes a village to raise a child. And I love that, but I think it's a bit ambiguous. And so now in my life, I really wanted to dissect and dilute that statement as much as I could. So I kind of cut it in half, and it takes a village. And in life, I think it takes a village no matter if you're a parent or not. And so my second book that I'm working on now is not a children's book. It's actually a prescriptive book for the masses about the village and who you are in people's villages, who you want to be in people's villages, and how you can be a part of people's villages and how to build those villages, specifically giving directions on how to do it. And so, it kind of all folds into this child advocacy, but I feel like I said before, it's evolved, and that's based on the temperature of society and what's going on. And we learned a lot through COVID. I mean, we can't go through something like a pandemic and think that we don't learn something from it. There has to be some positive things we take from it. And I think we all globally saw what happened to everyone's villages. They were taken away from them in so many different ways. And whether that was school or daycare or a nanny or whatever it was, or your parents or your friends, we all know. And that's a very strange thing to be able to globally bond in that way, to know what that feels like, that shared experience. So I wanted to make sure we captured that like lightning in a bottle sort of thing, because I don't want to lose what that felt like, because we need to learn from it. And so that's what the book is really about, is making sure that no matter where you are in your life or what's happening around you, that you understand and have the tools to be a part of a village and know what you need and ask for it too.
Wow. That's so beautiful. I mean, first of all, I can't wait. I just want to get your book, Nanny and Me. But I'm super excited about this for a number of reasons. One, I totally agree. Like, I think the pandemic, if we don't mine and harvest the gifts from it,
right,
and just think it was this horrible thing that happened and let's just move on. I mean,
right,
we can't. I mean, we can, and
right,
I'm sure, but there's no going back to normal. There's no,
right,
we can't go back in time. So to really look and see and what happened during that and find the value in it and what can we do going forward to create it. And I love the part, who am I in the village and what do I need a village for? And all of that. And I think that's going to weave its way through more of what we're going to talk about here. But I want to hear a little bit going back to your nanny days, right? When you were part of that village. What's it like to be a nanny? But particularly talk to me about the relationship you've had with parents and their children and kind of the ups and downs, the where it's wonderful, but also, what's challenging about it, that kind of thing.
It's interesting because you have a different view as the nanny in someone's home than the parents might have. You have a window into the world of the children that might be different, that might reveal more than a parent might see. It depends. And there's a lot of dynamics that go into it because there can be guilt on the parent side for not being around as much because they need to work or want to work or whatever the case may be. And then also competition, with the nanny because they see how much hopefully their children love the nanny. It can be a very delicate dance. And that's why picking the right person for your home, and that is a nanny who's in the home with you, and I'm not talking about someone that just like lives with you. It could be a nanny that just comes during the day for several hours, whatever. That term nanny is kind of just used in a general way now of anyone that's taking care of your children in your absence, but also daycare too. You need to find the right daycare, the right people, the place that you feel that your children are going to be safe, that give you peace of mind. That's what parents are looking for with childcare, is the peace of mind. And it begs the question, can you really trust another person with your most precious possessions, especially a stranger? And that was always the most interesting part of the process for me, was understanding that it wasn't just the family that was vetting me. I was also vetting the family. And, there have to be an alignment of values there. It doesn't mean that person looks like you, thinks like you necessarily. It just has to be an alignment of the core stuff, that stuff that churns and burns in your body, the rules of your home. And so when I did, work with a family and I would see things in the home that I necessarily wouldn't agree with, or something that I felt I needed to bring to the attention of the parents, I tried to be at least very thoughtful about my delivery of that. And my example of this is I was one of the nanny families I was with for many, many years. The little girl was very hard on herself and also felt a great deal of pressure from her parents to also perform in every aspect of her life at kind of the highest level. And one night she had been doing her homework and then kind of disappeared for a little too long. You know how you have that feeling, you're like, oh, it's a little too long. So I went upstairs and she was in the bathroom and I could hear her on the other side of the door throwing up, she was sick. And so I knocked and she let me come in and she's just crying and crying and crying. And we laid on the bathroom floor together and she told me she just felt she couldn't do it anymore. It was too hard and she was failing and she just really opened up. And my heart broke, with this, and I thought to myself, my gosh, how do I address her parents about this? Because a lot of the reason she's feeling how she's feeling is because of the pressure they're putting on her. And so I took a couple days to think about it because I also wanted to keep her trust, but I also had an obligation to try to help her and make her parents aware of something. So again, this delicate dance, this straddling you do on this very fine line. So I did sit down with her parents eventually, a couple days later and said, I really just want to bring to your attention how she's feeling and how can we work as a team to help her? It was never attacking them, shaming them or anything like that. And the truth was they were very receptive to it. They thanked me for bringing it to their attention and we worked on it. And now let's fast forward a lot of years later. I went to a wedding where she was attending and I hadn't seen her in a long time. She, grown up and she was successful and beautiful and all these things. And I hadn't seen her. And it was like a movie scene. She was on the other side of the dance floor and we kind of like ran to each other and she hugged me and I hugged her so tight. And when we backed away and I looked at her, she had tears in her eyes. And I said, what is it? And she said, I just want you to know you're still the voice in my head all these years later. And that's like the holy grail moment for a nanny, because there are so many moments that seem insignificant or significant and you don't know what anyone's going to remember. And this is in life. You don't know what people are going to remember of you, about you. My favorite quote is Maya Angelou: people will forget what you did, what you said, but they won't forget how you made them feel. And I feel like that that was my job as a nanny, was to make them feel something, whether it was love or secure or heard or understood or not judged, whatever it was. And so it was in that moment that I felt very validated about my work as a nanny, but also realized that there's a lot to say about childcare advocacy as well, and about what the dynamics of the home are with a nanny, with daycare, with whatever it is. And that we need to continue to explore that, and that our job in raising children in whatever capacity you're in with them, whatever your interaction is, it's not to be taken lightly, because you don't know how you're going to affect them in a negative or positive way.
There's so much in what you said, Florence, that's so important. And I'm so glad that the listeners will be able to hear this, because, that interaction and that delicate balance of, supporting, and both as a parent and someone who supports parents and families in a coaching perspective, it's the most vulnerable job on the planet. So it's not like going into your job review and, that can be tenuous, or, you can definitely have scared feelings of that, but you can kind of leave that behind when you're getting feedback, and I know you weren't saying you were giving them specific, you handled that so responsibly and beautifully as far as it being a team on that. And this is ours to look at, but, a parent hearing anything about their children being in pain. And, but even then, if there's times where you do need to give direct feedback, to be able to do that in a way that a parent can hear. And, the parent has, and this might be some of the values that we were talking about when you are looking at making a good match. Like, is this going to be a relationship or space where we can be truthful with each other, where we can share honestly, and even when we're not going to like it necessarily, in both ways, right? Like them giving you feedback, you giving feedback, all in the service of, the job, so to speak, of tending to and caring for a child or children. But, then, to have that impact, and you never know, like if something you did, what the future is going to entail, but how, to have it reflected back. You don't do it to get that reflection, but when you do, it's like, oh, how beautiful. And I'm so glad that worked that way. And I particularly think caregivers and, like, as you said, nanny covers a lot of terms. There's a lot of misconceptions. And this is what I work on, with women, people, whatever, and rewriting the mother code, like the mythology around all things mothering, right? And the choices and what that means. And this relationship, I don't think is thought about enough. And I'm so glad you're advocating for it and speaking out about it, because it's such a integral part of the mothering journey, both as the nanny and as the direct mother. So I guess the question I asked was, what are some common misconceptions that you ran into, or that you find, or you help to try and debunk? I know some that I would think of, but what are some that you've been really aware of and are trying to change?
There are so many, like you said, but I think that the thing that comes to mind, and maybe this is just because of my recent experience with it. I just turned 36 last week, and I had made a promise to myself.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. I had made a promise to myself that by the time I turned to 36, so in my 35th year, that if I was not married and had no children, that I would freeze my eggs. And I did. I was successful in that. I went through 2 rounds of IVF and actually chose donor sperm to fertilize some of them. And I have eggs that are unfertilized as well, in case I do ever get married. And going through the IVF experience was emotional and jarring and beautiful and heartbreaking in all sorts of ways. But it opened up kind of this secret underground society of women that I never really knew about. I didn't really know about anything about infertility, and that's not the reason I was going through what I was going through. And I certainly was met with meeting a lot of women who were struggling with infertility. And one thing that was a shared conversation I had with a bunch of women. We did they made us do, where the fertility clinic I went to in Colorado made us do a session together with a bunch of other women who were considering being single mothers by choice, which is, why I did the donor sperm and things like that. And here I was connected with all these women, different backgrounds and ages and reasons for why they were considering what they were considering. And the one thing I can remember everyone kind of saying was, there are so many of us out there who desperately want to be mothers, and are not yet. We're mothers in waiting, as they would call us, but there are so many places in life that we do mother. And that, I think, is what I really like to bring to the forefront is, I do mother in a lot of different ways. I felt that as a nanny, I was doing a lot of mothering. And even in this now new area of my life with advocacy, I feel I am taking on kind of that mama bear mentality too. And then also with the children in my life, my friends, all of that, I do consider my aunt title or whatever I might be as another person to mother them in some sort of way, to nurture them, to be invested in their well-being and their growth mentally, spiritually, whatever it might be. So that, I think, to me, is the first thing that comes to mind when we need to debunk something, or at least just bring awareness to something, that there are a lot of different ways to parent. It's not just mothering, I suppose. It could be fathering as well, but we're talking about mothers specifically. And just this recent experience of my life made me really very pensive about it and really opened my eyes to a lot of feelings that women have that I never realized before.
Hi, I'm so excited to share with you my 2024 Spring Equinox Self-Mothering Retreat that's happening this March 2024. And I would love for you not only to consider it, but to attend. But in considering it, hey, just knowing that you would be leaving cold weather, if that's the space that you're in, and coming down to just magnificently beautiful, warm, nourishing place of Zihuatanejo, Mexico. Zihuatanejo meaning land of the goddess women, and coming to really take time for yourself. Okay. And that, I am learning more and more, isn't just a nice thing to do or something extravagant or something selfish. It's essential. And I really want you to take it seriously, to consider, just think about, what would it take for me to go? It's a 5.5-day retreat, getting from where you are, getting there, landing there, and then being in a space that is all about you. It's all about nourishing you. It's all about tuning into you, using everything around us, the nature, the food, the beautiful people, the rituals, ceremonies. I bring it, we really bring it. And we go deeper and deeper as the days go on, and we release, we let go, we bring in what is nourishing, what is empowering, what is that space of just really divine feminine energy. And we do it in the community of women. It's not for everyone. I will be honest, if the idea of leaving and not making it work, or it's just too hard, not for you. If the idea of, spending that amount of time inwardly focused and going to that level of self-awareness doesn't sound like something you're willing to do or put the time and energy into, then it's not for you. And it's good to know that, right? So this is for people who are serious about what it means to mother themselves, what it means to take time for ourselves, and that gift and what that gift can bring to us. It was originally right after my fall retreat. It filled right up. But now some people, it turns out, are not able to come. So I do have a handful of openings. And if you're listening to this and you're willing to take that step, please reach out to me. We can do a discovery call, or you can put a deposit down. I would love that. And you can do that by going to my website, www.drgertrudelyons.com. Go to events, and there you go. It'll all be there. There's a beautiful page there for you to explore. I look forward to hearing from you and then seeing you on my spring retreat. Well, you're so attuned to it right now because of your experience, but you're speaking my language. Of course,
yes.
We're like sisters from another mother in that regard, and which I love, right? And maybe this will connect when we talk in a little bit more, even more about the village, where we lift each other and support each other.
Right.
But yes, like to have that message, gosh, same with you. If there's one thing I would love to change in the paradigm around mothering, is that you're only, one, there's a big myth that you're only a woman if you give birth to a child.
Right.
Like that's what makes you a woman. And that's,
right.
Been infused in the patriarchal, way of being for, unfortunately, thousands of years.
Right.
That our whole reason to be on the planet was to give birth to children. Like, really? Like, then why do we have a window of time so that all that other time that we're living, we're just a waste?
Right.
And,
exactly.
I don't think that's it. Number one, it's just so threatening, right? I mean, I understand we won't go into all the reasons behind that, but it is so wired in us, in our culture. And it's what kind of led me to do this to do what I'm doing, because that was in a group of women that I was working with and these were all women who didn't have children yet also, and were at varying places in my doctoral study. But I just brought that concept in because I thought it was important and meaningful. It wasn't even the crux of the seminar, or the study. But when I talked about, and this was something I had learned in my training with Dr. Judith Wright, that all women mother. We all mother, we conceive, create, give birth to dreams, ideas, children, if we choose. And choose is the big word there. We have that choice, right? You mothered a book. You're in the process of mothering another one, and these businesses and your podcast, and, that we see it as one of the options that of course is unique and beautiful. And, we're not saying anything else is the exact same experience, but we also don't want to take away from the power, because it's still the same values. It's the same, aspects that go into just this tremendous amount of caring and caregiving. And just like you with the experience that you had, like you've mothered these, embryos, these like, they're, and you mothered yourself. That's the whole, really what I'm trying to get at in a lot of this too. The most important person we need to mother is ourselves, as we're going about, this beautiful work that we do. So I think we're very aligned in that. And I'm so happy when others are advocating for the same, let's really bust that,
So well said. Really. I just love your sentiment around it too, and just your energy around it as well. And I think that we've evolved in a lot of different ways as a society, and that's fantastic. But, change can be difficult for people to watch over time and understand new concepts. And, it's easy for people to kind of just say, oh man, that's so silly, that people are being sensitive or overly, or whatever it is. But I do think that there are parts of that evolution and the sensitivity now that we have toward each other that was really needed and is really beautiful, especially when it comes to, like you said, debunking and demystifying that whole idea of what it really means to mother, and choosing it too is interesting. Because, I'm at an age where, it's like some of my friends are like, okay, is this the last call? Like I need to do it now or forever hold my peace, or, are there other ways to make a family, and what does that mean? And do I have to feel guilty if I don't want to have children in whatever way, and so there's just all of those layers to it. And I feel like one thing also I see happen a lot, and I did see happen a lot as a nanny, was a lot of women shaming other women. I would see the stay-at-home moms shaming the working moms, and then the vice versa of that, and they both had, very strong and passionate opinions about how they chose to live their lives, but why you had to cut down someone else, I don't understand. That's their choice. And I'll never condemn technology. I love it. I think it's great in moderation. I think though, the bullying we've seen though, in the cyber world has made and exacerbated this problem. It's made it much worse. I don't feel like I was as aware as how mean or how unkind or how judgmental or whatever it was until I started seeing how people behaved on social media. And I'm speaking specifically to the shaming of women, and I know it happens in a lot of different ways, but that's heartbreaking though, because, you have to make some really big decisions as a woman that men are not faced with, and to think that, that sisterhood, is not as strong across the board as I wish it was, is hard to swallow sometimes.
It really is. And, you just tapped into, again, like one of my other big, pet peeves, or what I would hope could come out of, with what you're saying. Cause I lived it, I've seen it. And I raised my kids without it wasn't around, right? Like,
you're right. You're lucky, right? Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I'm afraid. I'm telling you right now, I am like, that's one of the things I'm scared of, having a child that's going to grow up in that world. And I'm like, oh God, it's so
totally
hard.
Really the only screen through a bulk of, raising our two daughters was TV. Right. And that was bad enough.
That was bad enough. And now, gosh, it's all so much worse. Yeah, I know.
Oh my gosh. But one of the things I saw and hope for when these women took so much to this concept of that we all mother is like, oh, maybe, this is a way that we could have some common ground, right? That we do all mother, but it does take, from my studies and work, it's, we're only doing that out of our own insecurity. We're trying to, we have to put the other person down because we're so insecure about the choices we're making. And that's, yes. We're contributing to that culture. So this isn't like a victim mentality, but the, social media culture, all of that, and our families, all the wiring that's gone into like feeling like there's some right way to do this job, or to be a woman in general, but particularly when it comes to mothering. And as I said at the beginning, it's so vulnerable and it really isn't a job like any other job. And we've made it into one and we're always going to feel insecure, but we don't want that insecurity to be at the detriment of others who are making different choices. How do I really want to support women to go on a journey of, enough internal work and working on the wiring that got you making the decisions you are to try and make, as critical thinking of a decision, but also ones that are from, your own internal wisdom, right? Your own intuition. This is what's right for me. Other people might make other choices and everybody's going to have opinions about my choice, but how do I stay with myself and be secure enough in myself to be okay with my decision and not have to put other people down for making a different decision, right? To try and justify my own. And it's not easy, right? And it's the journey I'm hoping to invite women on is this, because it takes transformation. It takes like rooting out mistaken beliefs, my own, limited beliefs that I was raised with. If I can look at them more square on, then we have more choice. If getting that we're all mothers and then working on that, then we could be my vision is that we're all on one team. And how powerful will that be? Like, oh my gosh. I mean, we're so amazing as women, like that we've weathered what we've weathered through the years and have been still so magnificent. But if we start coming together versus putting each other down, can you imagine?
I know. It would be so powerful. Well, it'd be magic. I mean, that's the goosebump goal, right? Is that it could be like that. And I think in life, nothing ever happens overnight and but progress is progress. And no matter how small that progress is over time, you still see the ripple effects of that. And so I think what you're doing is so important because you are, that pebble that's being dropped into the water and seeing those ripples. And then you hope that people join your cause and those ripples get bigger and bigger. And, that advocacy becomes bigger and bigger and the voices become louder and louder and the energy becomes brighter and brighter. And but it takes a person like yourself to start a movement or to start these conversations. And I think that that's just a fantastic thing.
Yeah. Well, thanks. And it takes, people like you who are finding, where you can make a difference in the world that you are. And well, I think this leads to, of course, tons I want to talk to you about, but I think this ties to what we've been talking about where, the difficulty, and I know I could say parents, but we have been focusing a lot on the mother and women, but, parents also find it difficult to accept support and to, even though they've invited it in, there's still a challenge of accepting. And I was wondering what struggles you notice mothers have in particular, in our cultures. Yeah, it's kind of what we're talking about, but go ahead. Yeah.
No, it's so like right at the surface of my heart and deeply set in my heart at the same time, if that makes sense. It's the idea that you have to do it alone or do it yourself, rather, not alone, do it yourself in order to prove that you are capable or that you are a good mom or that you are, skilled or talented or have what it takes, however people want to word that. But it's that internal demon that I think all of us fight in some sort of way, that if we don't do it on our own, then somehow we are less than. And I think moms feel that so often, multiple times a day, even, that they are less than or they are failing because they need to ask for help. And asking for help is one of the pillars that I speak of a lot. I always say that, the three pillars of my heart and childcare advocacy are: you have to ask for help, let love in and build that village, like I, keep talking about. And so the asking for help part of it, though, is directly tied to the village making and the village building. But asking for it is one of the bravest things some people have to do. And it takes an incredible amount of courage. And I look at my own life and it's like, I say all the stuff that I say and I truly believe it. But then sometimes I don't even take my own advice. Like when I was going through all the IVF stuff and all that, like here I am talking on podcasts and shows and stuff all about asking for help. And, if you're struggling with something, and I wasn't even doing what I was telling people. I was packaging all of this, but I was not taking my own advice because I would wonder why I was feeling so alone. And IVF, anyone who goes through IVF will tell you, whatever part of IVF you're in, that it is one of the most isolating experiences you will go through. No matter how many people you have around you, it is still you and your body, and that is it. And you can't make your body do something you want it to do or whatever the case is. But I finally understood kind of what I was talking about asking for help when I went through that, because it was the most alone and most scared I probably felt in my life. And the first instinct for me was to retreat, was to not talk about it, and I realized that that's exactly the moment I needed to be brave, just like so many other women need to have that aha moment. And that's hard because I don't know what it is within us, why we're wired this way. And I would love to know if you have an answer to that. I'm sure you do, but why we think that we have to do it on our own in order to feel worthy. And that's so hard.
Again, yes. I just love how much we're like voyaging on this. I know. I love it. Especially when you talked about like, oh my gosh, here I am. Here I find myself, I coach people or an advocate for, the village and getting support. And I'm not doing it.
I'm not doing it.
It's a big part of my story as well. Like one of the things that ended up, moving me to take a step to like really go into this area of mothering in depth was where the fact that as I was raising my daughters, the thing I'd say we did consistently was, be as conscious of parents as we could. But when it came, I hit a point that when it came to really diving into the transformational opportunity, which meant like, using everything that came my way to like dig into and go deep into and rock the boat with my husband possibly. And, really work some of these deeper wounds. I was like, I hit a wall. I was like, nope.
Right.
And I can't say there was like one day I woke up and did that, but I kind of also did know I was doing it.
Right.
But I'm coaching other women to do it and they're doing it beautifully. And, I'm laughing about it now, but I've had a lot of regret and remorse about it. But then I didn't want to waste the opportunity of what is possible, but to show that it's really hard. Like even me who had so much support, so many people around me that, could advocate for me. And I was still like, nope. Not going any further. This is it.
I know.
But to honor that and honor the fear of that, but also show that there's more possibilities. But I think this leads us to, I do want to hear a bit more about the village, right? And the book that you're writing that you named, but how do you define a village? Like what, and where can a woman start first looking to build their village?
Well, I always laugh that people think, I think the first image we all get in our heads of village is that it is this enormous, group of people. And it's really in life about the quality versus quantity.
Love that.
The village changes over time. And in the book, I talk about, when the village is lost, and the village is lost for a lot of reasons. Maybe it was a global pandemic, wink, wink. Maybe it's because there's a divorce. Maybe it's because someone passes away. Whatever it is, the village can be lost. And the first reason why I kind of was thinking about that was, yes, the pandemic, but then also even just the loss in my own life. My grandparents were an old school Italian family. My mom's parents lived with us growing up. I shared a bed with my grandmother at one point. And Nana and Papa were the loves of our life. And they lived for a long time. My Papa was almost 98 when he passed, and my Nana was almost 95. They had big, rich, beautiful lives. But even when they left, to go to the other side, I was like, what? You're not even old. You should stay here with me and I need you. And, that need for that support when you lose people that were pillars, really strong pillars of your life, it's not until they're gone that you really start to realize what you counted on them for. And then you start to try to figure out how to fill that void. And my one friend said to me about my relationship with my grandmother, my Nana, she said, it sounds to me like you really lost your cheerleader, like your biggest cheerleader. And not my parents are, and my siblings are too, but Nana was just a special person. And I started thinking about that when writing the book, about the different people we are in life. And so in the book, I define the 6 different villagers that you would have in your life, whether it's the dependable villager, the cheerleader, the emergency contact, whatever it is. You start actually casting, like a play, the people in these roles. And they don't always stay for the entire time in your life, because maybe you move. Like I said, maybe someone passes away. Maybe the relationship changes. Maybe you're not friends anymore. There's a fallout, whatever it is. But it doesn't change the fact that at some point, you're going to probably need one of these villagers that I name. And you yourself don't have to be all of those villagers either. You can just be one of those people. But maybe, like myself, I happen to be all 6 villagers to some of my friends. I kind of span all. So it's doing this inventory, which I have so enjoyed in the book, of figuring out who am I in the village and who do I need in mine. And so that's what I try to explore. And again, it's not about parenting. It's about whoever you are, wherever you are in your life, trying to figure that out.
I love that. Well, it ties right back to the beginning, right? That we're mothering all the time. Right. And, but sometimes there's kind of peak experiences, or experiences that, we really need extra support, like taking on IVF, these kind of, bigger things where there is more stress, more, disequilibrium in a pandemic. When it's taken apart, we see how much we need it. That's so beautiful. And I love how you're splitting it out and consciously choosing a support network, a village. And I think that's so critical, because it's something that, when you said you were an Italian family, it was just kind of built in. And there's pros and cons to that, right? Like we're not saying that's the perfect scenario, but there are some beautiful things about it. So how can I have some of that, but then also get to choose, my village, right? You're not choosing your family of origin, right? Well, I kind of think cosmically we do, but that's a different topic.
I agree with that. Yes. But you do. There are pros and cons of it, and getting to choose different things in your life. But it's also the idea of not everybody is born into that type of nuclear family. I consider myself lucky to have grown up with that, but not everybody would consider themselves lucky to have that dynamic, nor is everyone born into something like that. They have to figure out how to build that village themselves. And that's who I'm also talking to in the book is, any person, whatever your age is or whatever is going on in your life, you have the opportunity to try and figure out how to be a part of a village. And if you're moving to, like, one of my best friends is moving to Texas, and she knows not a soul. It is her husband and her 2 kids, and they are moving for her husband's job. And she is like, I'm leaving my family, all of my friends. I mean, she is losing her village. And so she said to me, what do I do? And I was like, you have to rebuild. And the way you start that is by the community you're in, reaching out, getting to know your neighbors, the school system your kids are going to be in, making sure you're an active part of solving that problem. I say in the book, I can give you directions to get there, but you need to drive the car. Like I can give you all the advice in the world, and I'm sure you do that as well, but I need you to do your part too. And that's actually be an active part of solving the problem.
That's such a key and important aspect, right? Like whether, coaching, the advocacy, we can offer, but it really takes us then to like pick up the reins and do the work. Right.
And do the work. Do the work.
Yep. Yeah. Do the work that we're talking about. All right. Well, I have one final question, but before I ask my last question, I want my listeners to be able to find you and learn even more, because I'm sure they're going to be super excited to listen to your podcast and get on the waiting list for your book, all that good stuff. What are the best places?
So my website's florenceann.romano. All the information that you just mentioned is there. I also have tons of blogs that are about the village, but then also about a lot of other topics regarding childcare and parenting and all of it. And also I'm very active on Instagram. I answer every DM. So never feel like you're bothering me. I like to think of myself as your virtual village. I have been known to be up at like 2 or 3 in the morning talking to mamas who are like breastfeeding at that time or whatever it is that they're doing. I'm happy to be there for you. So please DM me and follow me, florenceann.romano there as well. And I really do mean it when I say reach out and, there's no stupid question. And, if you are feeling alone in any sort of way and need support, please think of me as that friend who's sitting on the couch with you having a talk.
Oh, that's beautiful. What a wonderful invitation. And to offer yourself, it sounds like you're offering some mothering to.
Mothering. I like that. Yes, the verb. I'm offering the verb.
You're offering the verb. And,
yes.
But, women have to take you up on the invitation and understand
that do. Yes.
That's a part of mothering themselves is reaching out and taking support when it's offered, especially. I mean, we can ask for it even when it's not offered, but when it's offered, I don't think I ever turn down when someone says, "Hey, do you want a bottle of water?" I always say yes, just for the act of like, I don't need to ask if I'm thirsty. Someone just offered me water. I'm going to say yes. Right.
I love that. I'm going to remember that now the next time someone offers me water. Yeah.
Yep. It's a practice. Okay. Last question. What does rewrite the mother code mean to you? And what's one way you're going to mother yourself this week?
Rewriting the mother code to me, I'm going to go back to what we talked a little bit about earlier, is that asking for help and what we just talked about. I think that understanding that wherever you are in your journey in terms of mothering, that you don't have to go it alone. And I think even this conversation right now is helping to debunk that and realize that you're not alone in your feelings. I always say everyone, no matter who you are, wants to be heard and understood and seen. And I think we need to see who each other, who we are, who we want to be in terms of, redefining that mother code and understanding what that word means in so many different ways. And the second part, I love that question because I think this week for me, it's walking. Walking for me is always something I love to do, need to do. And I start to feel real antsy when I haven't done it and gotten outside to do it. I live in Chicago and the weather is like super unpredictable. But it's a beautiful day today. And I keep thinking, okay, maybe this afternoon I'm going to take that time for myself and just get lost in the music that I listen to and just in my thought and kind of meditation and that sort of way. So I think that's my goal this week for myself because I'm feeling very antsy about it. And I need to listen to that.
Well, I love that. And I'm with you on that one also. And I noticed myself, like as the weather's turned, we were both in Chicago, which is so cool. And I am going to say, I think we should have a walking date.
Yes, I would love it.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. We solve all the world's problems on that walk.
It's all gonna happen.
Yes.
It definitely will happen. Well, it has been such a pleasure and it's just energized my day, made my day to be with you, Florence. And thank you for everything you're doing. And just thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me and your beautiful light. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much for choosing yourself and taking the time to listen to this podcast. As always, please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother. Subscribe to Mother. It helps other people who need this message, aka all women. Well, actually, everybody, men included. I'm honored to have you on this journey in mothering yourself. Remember, change is uncomfortable, but it's beautiful and it starts with us. And if you can't wait until next week's episode, follow me on Instagram and LinkedIn at Dr. Gertrude Lyons or at my website, drgertrudelyons.com. I'll see you next time.